let's just start with the basics. Have you, Michelle Rempel Garner, do you support Erin O'Toole in this leadership review?
I do. I am very concerned about ensuring that Canada has a strong opposition at this juncture in our nation's history. There are so many crises that the government needs to be held to account on, even for people who would never vote Conservative. Right now, we need to ensure that the Liberals are being held to account, and we can't do that if we are having another leadership race, particularly when the membership have a opportunity to weigh in at a convention coming up. So it's I just really hope that we can focus on unity going forward, and that's what I'd like to see the outcome be tomorrow.
Michelle Rempel Garner, let me go back on camera. There's a second letter that's just come out, and I'm going to read you excerpts just to get reaction. I'm reading this for the first time. I just want you to know. So here's what he's saying now. Even if Mr. O'Toole wins the vote on Wednesday, the Conservative Party and its grassroots supporters across the country will lose. A house divided against itself cannot stand. I expect that if Mr. O'Toole squeaks out a victory, he will attempt to remove me from caucus. So be it. The Conservative Party and the Conservative movement are much bigger than any man. He doesn't understand that. I will not be intimidated, and I will not apologize for voicing my concerns. What do you make of that? Even if he wins, what percentage, in your view, does he need to win? And if he wins, is he damaged goods?
I think that we just need to have level heads and understand that there are people in my caucus that we might not agree on everything. That's natural, but I've worked together with them, and we've had spectacular results on policy and holding the government to account. I would like us to be focused as a team on coming up with, a set of policies and inspirational statements that can show that we deserve to govern this country. This isn't about me. It's not about any one MP and what happens to them. It's really about constituents across the country. And, I have hope and optimism in the capacity of our caucus to unite. The pandemic has had, I think, an impact on everyone across the country. But now we need to act as leaders, the leaders that we've been elected to be, and focus on holding the Liberals to account. That's what I just implore my colleagues on all sides of this issue to do tomorrow.
Okay, so one last thing on this new letter, Michelle Rempel Garner. Mr. Benson has said this. Mr. O'Toole's statement last night confirmed my worst fears. Mr. O'Toole wants to divide his caucus and his party, not unite it. Rather than humbly admitting his mistakes and correcting course, Mr. O'Toole is doubling down, launching attacks and threatening consequences. Clearly 35 MPs, 30% of your caucus does not support Erin O'Toole. I know you do, but can he lead a party when 30% of the people are openly saying, we don't want the guy? What does that say about his leadership? And does it just weaken him? Is he damaging the party fighting for his own political power right now?
I would just say this. Can you imagine what our party could do instead of training our guns against one another, we unified and held the Liberals to account? That's what went through my head when I heard what you just read to me. And to my colleague, I have respect for. Somebody has to say the adult thing in the room here, which is, yes, we're going to have differences. Yes, we're going to have issues to sort out, but surely we can figure out a way to do that and do our jobs as a member of parliament instead of, just focusing on this. I would like to see the membership have a say on this issue. I came up the party as a grassroots activist. I would like to see the membership drive the bus on this. Caucus shouldn't be triggering this vote right now. I don't see the benefit in us going into a protracted, so soon after a federal election when we need to have a leadership convention.
But by the way, I think everybody listening probably understands that what you're saying. I don't think any party wants to see a public revolt going on. Nonetheless, it is going on, and I'm sure you don't want to see this, but it's happening. There's a letter. There's at least 35 signatures, maybe more. Will there be a vote tomorrow? Is that what's happening? Caucus meets tomorrow. We understand there will be a vote that Mr. O'Toole says it has to happen now. I know he has to have 50+1 to technically win, but does he have enough to reach the convention of 70% of his caucus behind him? So will there be a vote, and does he have the numbers to at least hit 70%, Michelle Rempel Garner?
I'm talking to my colleagues right now. I would love to be on this show talking about jobs in Alberta. I would like to be on the show talking about the rising cost of living. And here I am answering questions about internal sausage making. We are all mature adults. We have all been elected by our constituents to hold the Liberals to account. And I'd like us to all give pause for thought on how we are proceeding as a party. This is not going to inspire Canadians that we can govern. We have to show, we have to show adultness here. And I have confidence and hope and faith in my colleagues that I consider as my family, that's how we're going to emerge tomorrow, Evan. And that's really the only thing that I'm worried about at this point.
Right. That said, the reason I'm asking you this is because your leader tweeted out last night, we have to have it. It's going to be a showdown. It's got to be right now. He wants to have this. So there's going to be a vote tomorrow. Well, some of your sources are telling us that he's making calls and threatening people to try to make them sign support. Is that going on?
I certainly have not been threatened. I have been by somebody else, but I'll just say this. It's not about me. It's not about anyone else. This is about how we all individually comport ourselves. This review was not triggered, my understanding, by the leader. It was triggered by some members of the caucus. And now that I would just ask for people on all sides of this to move forward in a way that inspires Canadians. Canadians need to see that we are united before we can do anything else. I am worried about a time when we have a deeply broken healthcare system, conventional conflict looming in Ukraine, product shortages. We need to be holding the government to account. That is our actual job here. And I'm hopeful that we can.
I agree. Sorry, it's just hard to hear you. Listen, your party's the one that these memorandums are being, or these letters are being released publicly. I get that. But Michelle Rempel Garner, you said something that I'd be remiss if I didn't pick up. You said someone else threatened you. This is very important. You're a member of Parliament. You're an elected official. These are tense times. Can you go into detail? You said someone else had threatened you. Who was that? Have you been threatened?
I'm a big girl. I can handle myself. And my constituents don't want me to be on your show talking about me. They want me to be talking about how I'm fighting for their jobs and their livelihoods right now. So this needs to move on with this. And I am hopeful. There are many people in my party, including people that I know have started this letter, that are good people, that they care about the party, they care about the country. I would just hope that all sides can come together and that we can move forward in a way that Canadians see us as the mature choice to govern the country. And, having some tenure in the party now, that is my appeal to everybody here.
Okay, I'll leave you with one last question. In your view, is Erin O'Toole the leader by the end of tomorrow?
I certainly hope so. I hope that it's not. I hope that all sides involved here, that there's a process by which everybody can sit down, chart a path forward. I don't think this isn't a situation where we can just say that we have irreconcilable differences. We actually owe it to the country to try and sort it out. And then come up with a vision for this country that is modern, reflects Canada in 2022, as well as our conservative principles. That's the work I want to be doing. That's the work I intend to do on behalf of my constituents. And I just, for all of my colleagues, seriously, from the bottom of my heart, and I know so many of them, to really think about that. That's what I care about. That's what I'd like to see happen. And I hope they feel the same way.
Well, are you disappointed that members of your party are playing this open revolt out in public? Are you disappointed?
When you are in a leadership position, Evan, sometimes you can just be disappointed. You just have to look forward and find a path forward. And that's what I hope to put my hand to. I don't want to, comment on people's motives. There's so many people in our country right now that are frustrated, that have gone through 2 very difficult years. We need to be leaders for everyone, and I'm here to work on that. I don't know what more I can say. I want to get back to work. I want to spend question period tomorrow holding the Liberals to account on Ukraine, on lithium mines, whatever. Not this. So hopefully we can move on.
Well, we'll find out tomorrow. Listen, I got to tell you, I really appreciate you joining us today. There's obviously a very big debate over the future of your party's leader, but I appreciate Michelle Rempel Garner joining us today to talk about it. Thank you.
Thanks.